You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network, website thisweekinamerica.us. Michael Douglas is back with us on the program. His website, thedouglaslawfirm.com. He's a lawyer specializing in family law and criminal law. We're going to talk about family law in this particular segment of the program. Michael, welcome back to This Week in America. Great to have you back with us. You know, this is an interesting topic because you run into so many people that are going through a divorce situation, and they're like, I think I can do this by myself. It's uncontested. We can sit down maybe with one attorney representing both of us. It's very amicable. We have the same goals for the kids. We've got everything worked out. What do you recommend to somebody when they come to you as a family law specialist in terms of divorce when they say everything is amicable? Let's try to work this out. You need an attorney, don't you, in that situation?
I would say yes, and the reason why, Rick, is because I do get those calls quite often, and I tell the client right off the bat, that's great, that not that you guys want a divorce, but that you guys are, getting along enough to divvy everything up that needs to be divvied up and talk about the important issues. However, as an attorney, I can only represent one of the parties, and so then I have an ethical obligation to tell the other party, even though you guys are in agreement to the way everything is going to be divided up and kids and whatnot, I have to represent my client to the best of my abilities and look out for their best interests versus the other parties. So I tell both parties up front, especially the one that's not going to get an attorney or thinks he or she's not going to get an attorney, and explain to them that I'm going to give you all the paperwork. Feel free to look it over, take it to another attorney, because I'm looking out for the best interest of my client.
Well, I assume it's almost like a marriage counselor. Not that you do the psychological analysis and all of this, but you've seen problems that can come up 3, 4, 5 years down the line that maybe these people caught in the looking at the now don't see.
Exactly. And a lot of times, Rick, is that the parties originally come together and say, okay, we agree on everything. And then when it's actually put on paper and one party sees how much they're going to be paying off the debt or how much they're going to pay on the house or how much they're paying in child support or spousal maintenance, then their attitude changes, and then it's not so amicable.
Right.
And that's when one party gets angry at the other party, and it can snowball into this huge debate.
And you can avoid some of that, at least in the beginning, by having the representation. We're talking with Michael Douglas from the Douglas Law Firm, website thedouglaslawfirm.com. You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Talking about family law, let's talk about modifications. The economy, 1 in 6 looking for a job. People have to relocate to get jobs. So you enter into an agreement and you're saying, I will pay X amount in spousal maintenance, or I will pay X amount in child custody. I don't have a job anymore. I can't make those payments. Or visitation, I need to modify that because I'm not living down the street anymore. I'm now living 1,000 miles away. How difficult is it to get the sides together and to make modifications in a settlement?
Well, it just depends on the situation. Like you just listed a whole host of different things. And there's laws in the books or statutes that kind of dictate what needs to happen or what the court must consider when trying to determine if a modification is necessary or can be granted. But say, for example, someone just lost their job, the court will look at, can they find a job? What's their trade? What's their skill? Can they be imputed income? Can they be given income, even though they might not be making as much as they are now, or if anything, or unemployment? What's the likelihood of them finding employment? Can we give them income to help continue to support the children? So there's a lot of different aspects to look at, but it's doable. It just depends on the fact pattern.
I would assume one of the things you do is adoption. And I would think that would be one of the really rewarding parts of being involved in family law is actually putting a family together, actually seeing the adoption process fulfilled where there's a new member in the family.
Right, that's correct. I mean, to see the look on not only depending on how old the child is, but on the parents that are doing the adopting, once the whole process is finalized, to see their faces and to hear what they have to say about bringing this young child or any children into their lives, it's very rewarding.
How difficult a process is that? You hear all sorts of horror stories that it takes years and you get your hopes up and then something falls through. How difficult a process is it?
Well, it just depends on the situation. I know the law is kind of can be very vague. So depending on the facts, it can, range in time frame. I mean, it just really depends, Rick. I know that's a broad answer, but that's the best I can give you.
Michael Douglas has been our guest on This Week in America, website, thedouglaslawfirm.com. An excellent website, and there are a lot of questions and answers there, frequently asked questions regarding family law, and some tips as well on that. Michael, it's been a pleasure to have you with us on This Week in America.
Thank you, Rick.
You've been listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network, website, thisweekinamerica.us.